Hello there, it's me, Stephen Thomas, with yet another housing debrief. First, I wanted to bring everybody up to speed as to what's going on in the marketplace right now. Within this last week, there has not been a lot of economic news. So there was last week. Last week was when the Federal Reserve met and they had the Federal Open Market Committee. They had the speech Jerome Powell did, and then did a Q&A, and everything was hunky dory because they're still calling for 3 rate cuts this year, and talking still about being very data dependent. But their verbiage, the way that their speech was written, as well as how the Q&A went, still sounds a little bit more dovish than where they were before. They were a lot more hawkish, which means that they were going to be aggressive. And now they're kind of like, it's slowing down their role at this point. So that was last week. This week, not a lot of news. It was kind of like the interest rates did almost nothing the whole entire week. They remain below 7%, but barely, but they have a 6 handle, which is very important. Because when they have a 6 handle, the overall housing market across the United States, it performs a certain way. We get a increase in demand, pending sales activity, and then inventory doesn't grow as much because we're placing more stagnant inventory into pending status. So it's keeping inventory kind of at bay. And especially in those high cost areas, I'm tracking the Bay Area and Southern California, as well as Phoenix and Vegas. Those are our marketplaces that we're currently tracking. We're tracking a few others, but those are the ones that we're launching reports for all of those areas. And what we're seeing in the more of the high price areas is exactly that. We're seeing that demand is going up and the inventory is kind of flat or even going down. And as a result, the market is getting hotter and hotter as March progresses. Last year, the hottest point was actually the very beginning of March. This year, it has moved to right now. And here we are knocking on the door of April. So it'll be interesting to see how things go from here. But what we anticipate are interest rates to drop further, and we've explained why in many other of our videos. So with that said, let's get into the housing debrief, because that's where we are right now. So the market is extremely hot. And what that means is, as long as interest rates remain below 7%, then we will have increased demand, and the market will only grow hotter. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Tomorrow is Good Friday, and on Good Friday, actually, PCE is coming out. That's the personal consumption expenditures. That is what the Fed likes the most. They really like the PCE, and bet more than CPI, and that's what they quote and talk about. So tomorrow's data point is going to be extremely important, because based upon that data point is what we'll see with interest rates. Either they will be a lot higher interest rates because inflation is not under control and is going in the wrong direction, or it's kind of like it's ho hum, and that would be flat, or inflation's coming down a little bit more than expectations. It's already in the 2s in the cores, in the core. So if it came down a little bit swifter, you could actually see rates fall further into the 6s. So we will know more later on tomorrow, Friday, and last Friday of March. So that's where we're at with the overall economy, but now housing market actually. But now we're going to talk about today's topic. Do I buy a home now, or do I do it later? That's buy a home now or later? That's the big question. And I'm here to say, first of all, I don't know everybody's budget. You kind of like need to figure out what is your budget for your family. If you do your budget and you're ready to purchase, there are some people that go, yeah, I don't know when I should do this. Maybe I should sit back and try to time the market. Maybe it'll be better down the road. I heard that values are supposed to go down, that the values are just too high right now because of interest rates. They have to eventually come down. I've heard all the different arguments for why maybe it's appropriate to wait. And so there is a camp of a whole bunch of potential home buyers that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for values to come down. I come across them all the time, and even people that don't even know what I do that tell me, yeah, I missed the opportunity to buy this such and such house, and now I'm just waiting because I could kick myself. I was going to do it in 2019, waiting for values to come down. Heard that over and over again, but that just isn't quite the answer. Now, what we have to look at really boils down to, and this irritates a lot of people when I bring this up over and over again, supply and demand. Now, the way that supply and demand works is this force where between the balancing act between supply and demand. So what it is when you have a lot of supply and not enough demand, that favors buyers. That's too much supply. It's outweighs the amount of demand. And so what happens is typically prices come down in those kind of scenarios. Now, we also have where there is a lot of demand. This was very much COVID years and very little supply. And as a result, you have values that scream higher. And so now that gets us into, we brought this up, we bring this up over and over again because it's important for everybody to understand that there's a big difference between where we were prior to the Great Recession. 2006 is the first Himalaya, each one of those Himalayas is a year, so 2006, 7, 8. And what that is we had 4 million homes across the United States. This is National Association of Realtors. This is their inventory index that goes all the way back to June of 1982. And so I'm pointing right there to the supply glut where there's 4 million homes compared to the supply scarcity where currently right now we have about 1,070,000 homes across the United States. So about 1/4 of what we had prior and during the Great Recession. So that's called supply scarcity. The best way to understand supply glut and supply scarcity is Girl Scout cookies. I'm showing you boxes and boxes of Girl Scout cookies. When you have a glut of anything, way too much of something, then you need to sell it for cheaper in order to get rid of them. So if you have a Girl Scout, you buy all these boxes up front, and if you bought cases upon cases because you thought your daughter is going to just be the number one seller, and then she just didn't have enough motivation to get out. She didn't knock on doors. Another Girl Scout hit the street, and all of a sudden you're stuck with all these boxes. Girl Scout season is over. Either you're going to eat them, you've already paid for them, or you're going to give them to people, and you're going to say, hey, I'll sell you these for like $2, and you'll have a lot of takers. Why? Because it's a total discount. That's what happens when you have too much supply and not enough demand. Now, supply scarcity is, we're talking Thin Mints, where you have one box of Thin Mints. You've done all your Girl Scout duties and you've sold everything, and you have one box left and you're the only Girl Scout on the block, and all of a sudden everybody wants to freeze a box of Thin Mints and put it in their freezer. Delicious. And you have a number of people that want to do it, and there's only one box left, and you have a number of people on the block that want it. You know, somebody might pay $20 for that box. That's because there's a supply scarcity. So that is kind of what we are dealing with today. It's what I refer to as the Thin Mint box. That's all that we have of inventory. It's not much at all. Only 1,070,000 across the United States. So first, I want to bring in our sponsor. I want to say thank you so much to our sponsor, and it's Pillar to Post Home Inspectors, the ultimate home inspection experience. Now, Pillar to Post, they have with every standard home inspection, they have an interactive 360-degree visual inspection summary, and it's accessible anytime. They also have PTP estimates, where it's the cost estimates for all the inspection summary items, which makes it great. When you get it, you can see exactly, this is about how much it's going to cost me to do these fixes that came up in the inspection. And they also, for a premium package, they have a very accurate floor plan. That's the PTP floor plan. And they have a very accurate floor plan that you can use that has all the right dimensions so you can give it to contractors. And then they also have PTP home manual, which all the different home manuals for that house. So pretty fantastic. They also now do pest control inspections, and they do sewer scope inspections. So they're doing quite a bit now. And so call Paula Camarena at Pillar to Post Home Inspectors. That's Paula Camarena, 714-794-5295. That's 714-794-5295. Paula, thank you for your sponsorship. We really appreciate it. And now back to the program. So when you have a very limited supply, it's very easy for home values to rise. Now, the only reason why home values haven't been screaming higher because the supply still is extremely low compared to where we were even prior to COVID. As It's just extremely low, and the only reason why the values aren't screaming higher, they have been going up, but the reason they're not screaming higher is because there's this tug of war that's going on, that one favors sellers, one favors buyers. The one that favors sellers is supply scarcity. Supply scarcity favors the seller side of the equation in that supply and demand. So, but then you have affordability crisis. Now, the affordability crisis favors buyers, and that's because there are fewer and fewer buyers that can actually afford today's prices because of how high interest rates have been. They got all the way up to 8% in October. Now they're sitting right at about 6.91%. So better than where we were in October, and there's still more room for it to go down, which is why we're busier right now, because we have interest rates right below that threshold of 7%, which is a very important psychological threshold for the marketplace. Now, Jerome Powell has been trying to inflict pain and get everything under control, and the United States economy has been extremely robust. They brought interest rates up so darn high, and people thought, well, now we should have values come down, but because of the limited supply, that's why we haven't had values come down. Instead, they have been creeping up higher. But what they're trying to do is they're seeing that eventually that they're going to have to cut rates. But right now, as far as where the economy is, they're keeping things status quo and we're seeing interest rates when the economy is performing really well. We're seeing between 6.5% and 8% interest rates. They don't like them as low as 6.5%. And this has to do with bond market and issuance of bonds and things like that. And they don't like 8% because that's too restrictive. They kind of like where it's at right now. It's very close to 7%. And they're quite happy. Well, they met last week, like I said, and they still are orchestrating the fact that they're going to make 3 cuts this year. And so that's what you're going to see. You're actually seeing this in their Fed dots, and every quarter they project where they're going to think interest rates are going to be. Well, it was first in October, then it was in December. Now it's in March. Last week they actually talked about where interest rates are going to be, and from December to March, there hasn't been a big change. They're still calling for 3 rate cuts this year. So eventually, they're with the program, like so many economists, that eventually the economy is going to cool. Not necessarily go into recession, but it's going to get to a tipping point, and there's a lot of headwinds that are out there that are going to cause the overall economy to slow, and eventually something in the data is going to start to break, and it's going to happen over the course of the next 6 months. Between spring and summer is what we anticipate it to happen. I think that's where the majority of the Fed is as well, and a lot of economists think that they're too restrictive right now as far as where rates are concerned. We strongly feel that they should have already made a cut back in January when they met, and then at the very end of January, they definitely should have made a cut by March. They're probably not going to do it in May. The first one looks like it's going to come in June. Now, if they wait beyond June, they wreck, causing more damage and wreak more havoc on the economy down the road because of the different headwinds that we're seeing in various trends throughout the economy. So the economy eventually will slow, and when it shows itself in some of the economic data, then all of a sudden we're going to see that rates drop. And rates drop because there is a bunch of cash waiting on the sidelines, just like what we saw in December when the Federal Reserve became a lot more dovish in their talk, and they said that they're going to have 3 rate cuts this year. They went from 1 in September to 3 in December, and now they're still at 3. And as soon as that happened in December, we were at interest rates at 8%. All of a sudden, we had interest rates fall to about 6.5% at the end of December. And slowly but surely, they've been going up towards right under 7% is where they're kind of staying right now. now. But you can imagine that all this cash is sitting on the sidelines. As soon as they see the next stage of the slowdown, they're going to enter in, and you're going to see interest rates drop again from 7 all the way down to 6%. And when that happens, it'll probably float back up to 6.5%, but then things will cool a little bit more. So we're going to see that interest rates will range between 6 and 6.5%. But then if we get further slowing in the economy, not necessarily a recession, but enough where the Federal Reserve is going to have to do even more, maybe do their third rate cut, maybe do a fourth rate cut. Now, maybe not this year, maybe next year. But then once we get there, we're going to get interest rates that move further down below that 6% threshold, and we can have an interest rate anything in the 5s. That is where things will become unhinged, because their demand will go through the roof. We will have this spike in demand, and that spike in demand will be met with more homes coming on the market, because a lot of homeowners right now are enjoying these low rates. But with interest rates as high as they are today, not as many homeowners are coming on the market that have these low rates. There are some, but when these interest rates float down, you can actually see that more homeowners will come on the market, because the disparity between where the prevailing rate is for the day and what they're locked in right now fixed is going to be smaller. And as that gets smaller, there's going to be more people that are going to be, they've been waiting long enough. And that's what this particular slide talks about. And that basically is the share of all homeowners who plan to sell in the next 3 years. This was done by a quarterly survey that's done by actually Zillow, some extremely smart economists over there. This is the strongest December reading that they've had. And the strongest one prior to that, you could see, was actually 16%. It's at 21%, and it only climbs from here. We get to June, it'll climb higher. So about 25% of homeowners will want to move within the next 3 years. Does that mean all of them do? No, but that's what the survey says, is a lot of people, what this is pent up seller demand, and it's reaching a threshold that we have not seen before, because a lot of homeowners have not been able to move. And so what I'm talking about, so the number of homes that come on the market will not overwhelm the amount of demand that's created, because there's a demographic patch called the millennials, and they're the strongest demographic patch of all time, beating baby boomers, and they have been ready to purchase for years. That first-time home buyer demographic patch has been underserved. There's not enough homes. They've had to rent, and they're waiting for rates to come down so they can pounce into the market. As rates come down more and more of them will pounce. So demand will increase a lot, and so will the number of homeowners that come on the market. So the inventory will, but demand will increase more. It will outpace that increase in the number of homes that come on the market. And as a result, we will have home values that rise. So when do you need to purchase? We will have a market very similar to where we were during COVID. Not healthy, nothing I'm rooting for, but I'm just paving for you exactly where the market's going, so you can anticipate it and make proper choices based upon what the reality is, not what people's narratives say is going to happen. This is the reality of what economic supply and demand and everything else that factors into it. Is this what I really want? I don't want an unhealthy market. I wish we built a lot more over the course of the from 2010 all the way to 2020, but we didn't. And now there aren't enough new homes. There's not enough product that's out there. So the time is now. We're going to get to the same place where we have an auction-like atmosphere for everything that comes on the market, and there will be lines. And if you look close enough, they all have masks on, because this is what happened during COVID. We had lines going down the street of people wanting to see houses because there wasn't enough available. And house prices are going to go up. So when is the best time to purchase? Do you want to wait for rates to come down, or do you want to buy now what you can afford and not have to compete with all those people? Because down the road, when rates do come down, yes, you can actually refinance. The number of times you can refinance are infinitesimal. When's that going to happen? We don't know. However, know that down the road that we will have lower interest rates, and when we do, that's when house prices are going to scream higher, and we're going to be back in the same boat. Not enough homes, too much demand, and the demand will definitely outpace the amount of supply. So if you like this video, I invite you to like the video, subscribe. That's what helps us get this word out to as many people as possible. If you'd like to subscribe to one of our many reports, we have a housing report for all these different counties that we described earlier today. That's go to reportsonhousing.com. The most recent one that came out is what's called a climbing inventory, because so far we've had an inventory that climbed, but guess what? Now we have interest rates that are remaining below 7%, and suddenly we have inventory not climbing like it was before. But this explains where we started the year and where we are in inventory, which is way different than last year, because where we started the year, by the time we got to April, inventory was a lot less. This time around, it's the opposite. We have a lot more inventory than where we started off the year. So if you'd like to subscribe, we have a coupon for you called Timing. So utilize the coupon code Timing for a free month. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. For those of you celebrating like I am, happy Easter, and enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your spring break if you have a spring break like my kids do. And hopefully it's not all rain. I think we only have rain for this weekend, so we can have some fun times at the beach with the kids. So have a great finish your week. We will see you on the other side.